All right, so I'm Belinda Glenn, and I'm here with Emily Sadler of Organic Emily, as you also go by. And the way that we know each other is earlier this summer, I had a friend who let me know, and she was like, I'm going on this herbal walk. Do you want to, herbal, is it called an herbal walk, I think?
Yeah, herbal
what she
walk.
called it. Okay, and I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. I had kind of gotten more into the herbal approach to medicine in just this past year of kind of being aware of how like our plants and herbs and our food can be our medicine and just kind of being more aware of that. And then, so I just signed up for it and went on the herb walk, and it just blew my mind, actually, to be honest. Like, this is an awesome interview for me to do because I'm so excited about this stuff. And I was kind of shocked that we have stuff just growing in our mountains that you would go to the store and just buy without even thinking that it's, all around us.
Yeah.
And so I guess just to start off, how did you first get into this stuff?
So I always tell people I was born this way.
Okay.
I don't know how to explain it any other way.
I don't know any of this, so I'm learning all this for the first time.
Right. So I grew up gardening with my dad, and we hiked and we did all kinds of things. We were always in the mountains. We had a family cabin up in the mountains, and we were always, exploring and connecting with the earth, and I always felt drawn to natural healing. I had a great grandmother who was an herbalist that I later found out that she was later on in life. I didn't know that, but so I feel like it's innately inside of me.
Okay.
And
so did you grow up here?
Mostly, yes. So we grew up a little bit in Texas as kids, and my dad did his residency, and then we moved to Utah, and this is where I've lived most of my life.
Okay. So growing up going camping and hiking in the mountains.
Yeah, lots of gardening, and when I was 16, I had my maid advisor, a church leader who was wonderful. She was very into natural healing. She had an autoimmune disease that made her wheelchair bound, and I was always very connected and drawn to her. And she would make simple suggestions, and that's kind of when I started exploring natural medicine and herbs for myself. And, I had great success at a very young age. Age 16, 17. I used raspberry leaf tea as something to help with menstrual cramps and to help strengthen and tone my uterus. And I never had menstrual cramps. Still to this day, I don't,
Wow.
And so... TMI maybe. Yeah. I don't know, but that's the first experience I had.
No, I mean,
it was wonderful.
Yeah, I grew up on a really healthy diet, but at some point, I remember I don't know if it was when I started taking spirulina or like how you can get a green powder that just has like grasses and like all kinds of green spinach and kale and all this stuff pulverized. And these days they have all kinds of other stuff in it, but I started taking that, and actually I did notice that my like cramps and things like that were, I never really had it that bad. I think maybe because I was so healthy for my whole life, but that actually took it to the next level.
Yeah, nice.
So I had the same experience. And I also actually had some people when I was younger, like I remember a woman came and spoke and talked about doing cleanses every year. And it's the first time I ever heard about that. But I didn't get into it until later and to really see real effects. So that was when you kind of like the seeds were planted. And then how did it kind of like progress?
So one of my very first jobs was working in a health food store at a young age. And I just started learning more. I went to massage therapy school at age 19, over 20 years ago. I was just always wanting to learn more about natural healing, and became a yoga instructor and have taught for almost 20 years yoga.
Okay, I didn't know this either.
Right. So just kind of in that world, I've always been really drawn to it.
Okay.
And now I'm enrolled in a traditional naturopath school.
Okay.
I plan to finish that if I can, and over time I just was a lot of self-study. I read a lot. I still read a lot. And I have gone out and I have traveled and met with other herbalists and learned from other herbalists. I've taken a few courses.
Okay. So you kind of had this thing that, you started kind of learning about at a young age. And then, so for years, you just kind of studied it on your own and you were around it in the yoga and community and massage community. But then when did you first take like an herbal class? Or was it more just that you studied on your own and then...
Well, I mostly studied on my own for years. And then it wasn't until in the last maybe 5 or so years when I started taking more courses.
Okay.
And, with 7 kids that I homeschool, it's kind of tough to be able to do everything you want to do. And so I was having lots of babies, and now that my kids have kind of become a little more independent, a little bit older, we still have little kids, but, they've gotten to a point where I've been able to take some time to study and do some courses. So I'm in my 3rd completely different online course. I obtained my clinical herbalist certification through the Homegrown School of Botanical Medicine with Dr. Patrick Jones in Idaho. So that was a great school. I felt like Dr. Patrick Jones was a really good mentor. He is a veterinarian, and so he laid a really nice foundation of how the body works. I mean, I did teach anatomy at the massage school that I graduated from, and so I had a good background there. But just to have that coupled with learning herbs and how they work in the body was really a really nice education. I felt like it was great. So at this point, I'm just learning more from different people and different things, and I think there's always something to learn. Even if you know a lot of what that person knows, there's always something they can teach you, for sure, and I love that.
Yeah, I feel like just the little amount that I've just dabbled compared to how much information is out there. I mean, I went to Texas to visit my mom, and we went on a walk by the beach, and we kind of wandered off into the foliage, and I was looking around, I was like, these plants are totally different than what grows in Utah. And you start realizing there's thousands of varieties of plants, and this is just in our own country that the 2 states have such different flora and fauna, and I'm like, this is going to be like a lifetime of knowledge of really everything you could possibly learn, which makes it really cool. It's like, if you're the type of person who likes to learn and gain knowledge, then it's a great subject to get into. It's sort of endless. So that, what was that program like that you were just talking about with?
So it was mostly,
how long was it?
Well, he wasn't quite finished with the program. It was still kind of in the works when I signed up for it. And so I think it would have taken me a year to diligently work, maybe weekly. And so it took a little bit longer. It took like a couple of years because he just wasn't finished with it. And then we had some hands-on classes and some herb walks that we would do in person. So there were a few in-person classes, which I think is always good. Yeah. And then a lot of online, anatomy and physiology and the description of the herbs. And he was, he had a great sense of humor, had some fun stories that made it really easy to learn. And so that was really nice.
Cool. And I have to say, the herb walk I went on with you, like, you had memorized not only all these plants, but all the botanical names, like the families, I think maybe even, and like all, like, not just what they do in like colloquial terms.
So yeah, I know what you're talking about. So an anodyne, or just as a more medical term for that herb and what that herb does. So like an herb that would help with a sore throat would be an astringent herb. And that's a really important thing to learn about the plants and what categories they fall under, because then if if a certain plant is an astringent herb, then you know that it would be good for bleeding and also diarrhea. So usually that kind of thing is important too, to learn their actions.
Yeah, and that's, as I'm studying it too, I'm kind of learning those different, and that kind of opened my eyes too, that herbology isn't just this hippy dippy thing of like, yeah, go get some dandelion and make it into a tea, and who knows what'll happen. It'll probably be good for something. Like, this is a science.
Absolutely.
So,
and it can be overwhelming, even sometimes for me. Sometimes I feel like, oh wow, there's so much here, but I have an insatiable desire to learn more, and I think that's why I say, it's inside of me somewhere. I just want to keep learning. So
cool. Yeah, that's so cool. So you took that course, and then what made you decide to start teaching it and do the herb walks? Or just naturally?
I'm a firm believer in teaching what you love, and then, and growing and learning and developing yourself from that. And I think it's just helped me really solidify what I know better, and just sharing with people the importance of using herbal medicine, just simple herbs that we're probably already growing in our own yards. Yeah. Herbs that we can grow here in this climate. I grow over 130 plus herbs on my quarter-acre lot. It's just a small lot. My dream would be to homestead some acreage and grow and grow and grow, but right now we don't have that, and so I research and I find a place to plant it, and I plant it.
Okay, and then I do have to say something about that too, because we did an herb walk in the mountains, and then we did an herb walk just at your house. Yeah. And as I was driving here tonight, I'm kind of looking at all these houses, and I have a friend who kind of does the same thing. He's coming from a more permaculture point of view, but his house is the same, where all there's each of these houses with their nice lawn, with their nice shrubs and their trees, and then you come to your house and it's all herbs, like it's like a beautiful blossoming forest of herbs and flowers and things. And so I didn't realize it was 130. That's amazing.
Yep. And there could be more. I mean, everything is medicinal. Everything that we see, there's a purpose for it, for sure. So, and it's a water-wise landscape, and so we have minimal sod and mostly flower beds. We are actually using less water.
Oh, because do you plant them in a permaculture way where they balance each other out, kind of thing? How does that?
And you're using like a drip system, so that uses less water than your sod would take with the overhead spray.
True, because if you just have grass, then that's a very water consuming. Grass takes a lot of water.
Yeah, it consumes more water for sure. Where those plants don't as much.
Okay. Yeah, that's one thing I was amazed. I think there was one that we looked at in your backyard that you kind of mentioned, I'll take that and throw it on my salad. And it had smaller leaves than we usually think of. I can't remember what it was, but it
was probably maybe
remember.
Purslane, I think.
Yeah, that's probably. And I don't remember what the medicinal, what were the medicinal ones?
It's really high in vitamins A and E and C and D, so really high, really nutritive. But it also contains lots of omega-3 fatty acids. It has almost as much as fish. Oh. And so it's a really good herb, really good.
Okay. Yeah, and it made me realize, like, we have our salads and we think iceberg lettuce, romaine lettuce, spinach, like there's 4 options, because those are the options at the store, and that's what you put in a salad. Like,
right.
It's just funny things that we don't even think of, because we're so used to our modern diet, that you could have different things you could throw on your salad, and that have what kind of flavor does it have? I don't remember.
It's a little bit tangy, and but it I think it tastes really good. It's just a nice addition. Yeah. So yeah, and there's another lookalike called spurge, and it has more of a flat, dry leaf, where Purslane is more of a succulent, so its leaves are a little more plump. Okay. And you don't want to eat spurge because it's toxic. So you need to be able to identify well. Okay. Whether it's in your own yard with the weeds that you're growing, because it's technically a weed that people grow in their yard. Oh. Some people grow on purpose. In Europe, they grow it on purpose, and it's a delicacy. And we like to
Here we
yank our weeds out of the ground and throw them away.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've also came across someone who was saying how during the Depression they would eat dandelion leaves, but it's not just during the Depression. It's actually dandelion and dandelion leaf is actually really beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Weirdly
really
enough, I
good. And the greens it's part of the lettuce family. You know, and the greens
I didn't know
are.
that. Until right now, I didn't know lettuce was a family.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's part of that family, but it's greens in the spring before it flowers are nice and tender and delicious, and you can even eat the flowers. The whole plant is edible and medicinal.
And what's an example of a dandelion medicinal properties
So
that we don't really know about?
Yeah, the leaves are good diuretic, which is going to help us urinate more. So if we have excess water retention, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Urinary tract infections or kidney infections, it would just help us kind of get all of that out faster. Okay. It also has higher amounts of potassium. And so diuretics usually pull the potassium out of the body too fast, and we can be depleted of potassium. And
You mean like store-bought diuretics?
or pharmaceutical diuretics.
Okay.
But
But
like
if you do the dandelion, you get the benefits of you don't lose the potassium and you get the
Right.
diuretic.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So like my mentor said, he said, God is smart, and he's thought of everything. And I love that. And so the flowers are edible as well. They also contain a little bit of azulene blue, which is the chemical constituent that we find in arnica, which is really beneficial for bruising and sprains and strains and helping to move that blood and decrease inflammation.
Okay.
And the root is, this is another eclectic word that's kind of funny. It's a collygog, and that means...
yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that means that it's going to help our body produce more bile. Okay. And as we produce more bile, that helps to flush out the liver and cleanse the liver. And then it also helps to moisten the bowels, and so that can help with constipation. A lot of times when our liver is bogged down, and our liver is always constantly working to detox and cleanse and even hold certain toxins if we can't get rid of them. And if our liver's too kind of heavy with those toxins, it sends things out to our skin. And so these liver supportive herbs can help clear up skin condition as well if it's a liver problem.
That's another thing that I feel like a lot of people start learning when they get into this stuff more, is that a skin condition can actually be due to something internal. Yeah. Like we think in these days that you have a skin condition, so you treat your skin.
Right.
And we don't realize that if you actually fix some things inside that you might not know you have or have going on, then the skin condition can actually clear up.
Yeah, a lot of that is gut issues and liver, for sure. Yeah. So I would tell someone if they've got some skin issues, maybe look into healing the gut and cutting out foods that cause inflammation for them.
Okay, in the first place.
And then take some of those liver-loving herbs.
Liver stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that also makes, kind of reminds me that chemicals are, if you understand chemicals, it's like a realm of study. You can't just say, oh, that chemical's bad and that chemical's good. That's poisonous and that's not poisonous. Like, it doesn't seem like it really works that way. It depends what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
It depends how the chemical is mixed with something else, or knowing how you're using things totally, makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And how your body reacts to that, it goes into epigenetics and how does the environment affect our genetics. And so every person is different for sure.
Oh.
The more natural, the better, I think. But yeah.
But one person's body could react totally different.
Yeah.
That's another thing I'm learning too. That's more of a holistic. I feel like I'm talking too much here, but
no, you're fine.
I just want to say feeling. I'm learning that each individual is different, and we all have different DNA, culture, background, history. And so to have a blanket answer for every person is actually not necessarily going to work.
Right.
Because we'll react. One person will react totally different. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question, I want to know another example of something like dandelion or purslane that grows in your yard that you use or use maybe frequently, or that you put on food that has medicinal and vitamins and things? What's another good example?
So, flower-wise, calendula is edible.
Okay.
A common name is called pot marigold, and they used to throw it in their soups and eat it. I don't know very many people who eat it today, but you can eat them.
Okay.
The flower is the medicine, and its Latin name is Calendula officinalis.
Okay.
And anytime you see official or officinalis as a species name, it's been used in the very first apothecaries hundreds of years ago.
Oh.
So it was an official medicinal plant.
I didn't know this. Okay,
And
I see that all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? And so there is history to that plant in particular. Now, not every medicinal plant has the species of officinalis.
Yeah.
But the ones that do are for sure medicinal.
Studied for a really long time.
Yes.
Okay.
And used as medicine for a long time.
Okay.
And I think we've lost that knowledge, and there's some background to that we can get into later. But so calendula.
Unless you want to go into it now, I love hearing it. But
so I'll finish what calendula does.
Okay.
So calendula is a really good skin herb. It can be taken internally and used externally. I really love to use it for skin rashes, any kind of skin issues. And so what it does is it helps to accelerate cellular division. It helps to accelerate healing. And so it helps with rapid cell division, basically. And it has some antibacterial, antifungal properties, so it would be good for diaper rashes, maybe caused by a fungus, or even, just irritation. It's very soothing, very emollient. It's good for eczema, good for all kinds of skin problems. Okay. It's also good for the gut, too. If we were to use it with comfrey, it would help to heal ulcers in the stomach.
Okay.
And, just any GI issues it'd be good for.
Okay.
So that one's a really good one.
Good one. So does that grow commonly, or is that something someone would intentionally plant?
Someone could intentionally plant one time. It's an annual, so it will go to seed and then come back again. Okay. I had planted calendula, maybe a packet or two of calendula seeds years ago. Okay. And I've never had to replant again. Okay. Because it reseeds and then comes up wherever it wants, and I let it grow where it has room. And I pick the flowers, and the more I pick, the more it produces flowers for me. And cool. So if it were to never freeze, it would bloom every single month of the year. Okay. As its name references the calendar.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Cool.
So I did have some calendula out there that reseeded, and it was trying really hard to flower. It did kind of flower right here before we hit our hard freeze this week. And I'm sure it's all gone now, but there's seeds there, and they'll come back.
Cool. I guess that's another interesting thing is I feel like there was one herbal blend that I was recommended last year, and I did take it, and I actually felt like it did really help supportively when it comes to like emotional issues, which this is kind of another topic of the idea of herbs helping with emotions. Mm-hmm. But so in it, I think is mistletoe and rose, along with hawthorn. But it occurred to me, mistletoe and rose are known as, associated with love. We always associate them with love and romance. Yeah. And then I was like, are they actually good for the heart? Yes. And that's where that's why we think that. Like, that's what the background of our association with that is actually a tangible, literal thing, not just like this, kind of random.
Yes, absolutely. And those things are very good for the heart. They're very good, especially hawthorn. It helps not only to our heart to heal on a physical level, but also an emotional and spiritual level as well. And especially from grief and loss and sadness. Okay. It can help us to open our heart again. And the rose is the same way. It helps us open our heart to love again, which is interesting. And, and a lot of our flowers we can make flower essences with, and those flower essences affect our emotions. Can help us to maybe find more courage and bravery in doing something we wouldn't normally do. And there's all kinds of different things. Yeah.
amazing.
So, but the herbs.
And I experienced that with the hawthorn. It just touched
Nice.
my mic.
I think I did too.
Okay, yeah, we're gesturing. We're doing our best. Yeah, I really feel so strongly like that was the exact way to explain it. Like my heart opened up in this first month that I started taking it. I just felt like love just pouring from me, and it's so weird to talk about because before that experience, I never would have ever thought that you would associate a herb with an emotion. That just I never would have occurred to me. So
Interesting.
it's cool to experience.
Yeah, that's really cool. So here's a biblical reference to that.
Okay.
When King David committed adultery and later on murder, because he committed adultery with Bathsheba and then sent her husband to the front lines to be killed, basically, and then married her. Afterward, he felt such remorse and guilt that he asked to be purged with hyssop. And you wonder, well, why? You know, that's just, maybe it was just some ritual, some religious thing.
Yeah, we never think about that. We're just
Right.
like, oh, some old ancient ritual thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's actually scientific evidence to support why they did it. And hyssop is really high in monoterpenes, which is a chemical constituent that helps to reprogram receptor sites of the cells and actually get rid of negative dissonance or evil that they believe that it would help purge them of evil. And on a scientific level, I'm totally butchering this, I know, but it works. It actually helps to reprogram those cells at a DNA level.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, it's really interesting that there's that spiritual and physical connection.
Yeah, and we just think of it being some kind of ancient, weird, you know.
Right.
But there's actually a science.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love learning this stuff.
Who knows if they even knew what the science really was all about? You know,
Yeah.
Did they know? I don't know.
As
But
much as they just
but they
saw
knew.
that- yeah, they
to some
fig-
degree, they knew.
I think you back then it's just trial and error. Like you try something and it works.
Yeah.
Someone else tries it and it works, and someone
Or-
else tries it and it doesn't work.
Or I think there's inspiration. From one herbalist I learned from, she said, you know, we're all born with the knowledge. It's just schooled out of us. We've forgotten. And
Interesting.
And I love that because I mean, that's how I feel like. I feel like I've, in a sense, forgotten, but it's there. It's there, and I just need to relearn it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same case for hundreds, if not thousands of years dating back in history. I feel like a lot of things were given through inspiration in whatever form that looked like. I think, you know, and trial and error for sure.
Or a combination of both, or
Yeah.
combination of inspiration, instinct.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we are extremely instinctual as well, especially when
Yes.
I look at kids. When I think about my childhood, I remember I loved canned spinach for a while. It was this random, I just thought it was so good, and I loved Fig Newtons. And now I don't like Fig Newtons, really. Like, but I remember loving them, and figs are really healthy, and spinach is really healthy. And I just feel like we do have it, you know, if a kid, you know, I definitely believe in being cautious and stuff, but if a kid feels drawn to eating a plant, I almost wonder if there's an instinct there. Or if us as adults, the same thing, if we're feeling like, oh, I just want to pluck this and taste it and just see, you know, there might be something that's just an animal instinct even.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I've had moments like that where I've been learning more about or reading more about an herb I know about, but I'm reading more about it, or I'm learning a story from someone. And this particular herb I was learning about, and I felt very drawn. All of a sudden, I need this herb. My body needs this herb, and I did. I needed it. I needed it to support my blood. I needed it to support my iron levels. and the smell of it, when I smelled it, when I dug it up in the mountains and I smelled it, it just smelled so good. Like, I was really drawn to that plant, and the taste of it was good. And I think our senses do pick up on that. And I do encourage people when they go out on nature walks, if with a skilled person who knows what they're talking about, because there are toxic plants out there that can kill you. There are, for sure. But to smell the plant and to taste it and to really look at it, to really look at the leaf structure, because there's a ton of white flowers out there. There's poison hemlock with white flowers, and there's yarrow with white flowers. I have a friend who pointed out poison hemlock to me. She said, "Oh, is this yarrow? I'm going to pick this." And I said, "No, that's not yarrow. You don't want to pick that." So I always tell people, look at the leaves. Look at the leaves, because the leaves are going to tell you a lot. If you can look at the leaves and the definition of the leaves, and not just the flower is helpful. But if you can really determine what that plant is, from the leaves and, all of that combination, the smell, the taste, if it's safe,
My next question with that is that another person that I go foraging with, he kind of showed me that most berries, if not all berries that grow around here, you would have to eat at least like 15 or 17 if they do have poisonous contents. You'd have to eat at least like a handful or more to then feel sick. But then actually dying from it would be,
right, because there's elderberry. So if you were to eat elderberry raw, and I have family members who they went hiking, they ate raw elderberries.
I've tried them. You can eat one or two.
Yeah, you can eat a few, but they were eating handfuls.
Oh gosh.
And on the way down,
they're not that good. Are they? Like,
maybe
they're
in
not
the
really
fall
sweet.
After a freeze or something,
Okay.
it helps to increase the sugar content.
Okay.
And they were throwing up, and it's an emetic. It's an emetic herb. It will help you throw up. So what would be beneficial for that? Food poisoning, right?
Okay.
If you had food poisoning, take something that would make you throw up.
A bunch of elderberry.
Yeah, but raw. It would have to be raw, or maybe the bark or the root. It's all very strong emetic, and that would make you vomit. Lobelia would make you vomit if you took too much of it. So there are herbs out there that would be beneficial for that reason, but also it would be another reason not to use it if you didn't need to. So yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. So it just shows you like something that we would say, you would, if you eat an elderberry.
If you spit them out, they're kind of small.
Yeah, but with elderberry, you eat it when you're healthy, and you would consider it poisonous because it would make you throw up. So it must be poisonous. But if you were sick and have food poisoning, you would want to throw up. And so it's actually beneficial. Right. So it's just the way we understand.
Yep.
The word poisonous doesn't really mean what we think. I really grew up thinking, and I talk to other people that we really think, if I eat one berry of a plant that I don't know, don't eat it because it's probably poisonous. I might die from one berry. Like that's what we think that it works. And like so many of the ones that I'm learning about in our mountains aren't poisonous at all, or because there's like false Solomon seal, and there's, wild cherry and chokecherry, serviceberry, all this stuff that our grandparents probably knew more about. And then even if you did come across a poisonous one, at least here in Utah, you would have to eat so much before you would even... Yeah. But I'm sure in the Amazon there's like poisonous berries you could eat one and die. But
yeah, there's the white berries that we usually want to stay away from. Red elder is a little more toxic than the blue or the black, and so people usually say stay away from those. So yeah, it just depends. It's all about education, knowledge base. Yeah.
And even those poisonous berries probably have, if you cook them or you process them in some way, maybe. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
That's probably not important, but.
Well, there's a reason for everything, right?
Yeah.
Monkshood, which is aconitum, is a wonderful homeopathic remedy.
Okay. Monkshood that grows here.
Yeah, in our mountains.
And so, what is that? Tell me about that.
So you could kill someone with it.
Okay.
Yes, but as used as a homeopathic remedy, I have helped my daughter overcome croup in 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
So there's a reason, there's a purpose for everything. And I do believe people have used it as like very, very low dose tinctures.
Okay.
Same with belladonna. Yeah, lots of our toxic.
Or arsenic also is used as a homeopath, and it's normally poisonous on its own.
Right.
But if you use it in the right way,
Yep.
that's I've had that thought. Now that when you start learning about these, you're like, there probably is a use for that plant, even though it's poisonous. I bet there's some way.
Absolutely.
It can be used.
Well, poison hemlock wasn't originally on this continent. In the Western Hemisphere, it was brought over by the Europeans.
Okay.
And they brought over the plant material and the seeds to use as medicine. And but this was the plant that killed Socrates in a Greek prison. That's how they used to kill their prisoners, with the poison hemlock juice, and it causes respiratory failure, and they die within 5 minutes.
Oh wow!
But they brought this plant over and they used it as medicine. I don't know how they used it as medicine. I'm still trying to learn more about poisonous plants, but that's kind of the history of it. It's really interesting.
Oh yeah, so it's just all in how you use it.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's true of our household products. I mean, when we talk about, we use poisonous things all the time, but we use them properly.
Right.
So
that is true. Right. We use things we wouldn't want to ingest. I mean, who wants to ingest soap, even if it's natural based? Yeah. That won't taste good.
We have items in our house that you could hurt yourself really badly in a minute if you didn't use it correctly. So. Right. So what's an example, you've been giving some good examples, but what is an example with your kids where you've used herbs to help them? And then I also want to ask about, because you talked a lot when we did the herbal walk about like pregnancy and childbirth and herbs that help with all these kinds of things that relate to women's health. So that's what I'm kind of curious about.
So with our children, so when we think about herbs, and trying to heal on a more natural level, in Ayurvedic medicine, there are doctors there. If they do not start very basic, if they do not start with food and healing at a very basic level, they can lose their license. They can lose their ability to practice. Okay. And so herbs are usually categorized in 4 categories. So there's like a category 1 herb, and then 2, 3, and 4. Category 1 herb is a food. Oh. And then 2 might be more of a little bit more medicinal. You wouldn't take it on a regular basis, like you would eat food with. And then level 3 would be much stronger. You would use it, for a specific ailment. And then level 4 would be, kind of a more high risk plant where you would have to be really cautious about the dosage and use it very, very minimally under the guidance of someone who knows what they're doing. Okay. And so for children, that's kind of what we want to focus on is good nutrition, hydration. When they do need an herb, it would be like a level 2. So my 2-year-old daughter had a fever about a month ago or so, and I just wanted to support that fever. I didn't want to bring it down. And I gave her a nice warm bath and some Epsom salts, and I made a tea with some herbs that supported a fever, and I poured because they don't always want to.
Explain why.
Yeah. So children can absorb the herbs through their skin fairly well, especially bitter herbs that they don't want to ingest. It just tastes icky. I mean, good luck getting your child to drink a bitter tea, with something with yarrow in it, right? Oh, right. It's really bitter herb.
Because as an adult, you can say, I know this is going to help me, so I'm going to force it down. But a child, it's your choice trying to get them.
Right. Yeah. Right, exactly. And so in this formula, I had lavender and chamomile and elderflower. I had yarrow and I had spearmint. And so it would have tasted pretty good. But I would make a nice strong tea with that and then pour most of that in the bath water. Maybe save a little bit for them to sip on. Okay. And that would just help the body kind of make that fever more productive. And so they would start to sweat, and then that fever would break. And so we did that. And another herb that I really like to use with children is raspberry leaf.
Okay. Actually, really quick, what's the theory behind that approach to fever, where you're not trying to just...
Oh, lower it, but you're trying to support it?
Yeah, what do you mean by support it?
So fevers are really there to help detox the body of whatever's going on. So that fever is detoxing. And
so the fever itself isn't exactly the enemy.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's the fever can be really beneficial. So I like to look at the child's behavior. Is the child arousable? Is the child hydrated? Or is that child like lethargic and floppy and not responding and not drinking? You know, that's when I would lower that fever and or take them in to a doctor.
Okay. So you're putting everything together that you're seeing. You're saying, I'm seeing this, this, plus a fever, plus this.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Where if I were to support the fever and, do the things that I mentioned, I have successfully done this multiple times with my children. And they've gotten a lot better faster. When we give medication to help lower that fever, it actually prolongs the illness. It makes it so
because it brings the fever down right away, but then
they still got all that stuff going on, and they still have to detox,
and it just hangs and hangs and hangs in the system for longer.
Right.
Whereas if you let the fever kind of process itself out, it'll break sooner, and then by then it's just
it's over. Yeah, I've seen my kids, boom, 24 hours or less. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So there are, and I would say, follow your intuition as a mother. So there's one thing that I really like to tell people, and that is some information from a pediatrician. His name is Lawrence Palevsky. And if you just look up his name, Lawrence Palevsky, when your child is sick, and you'll pull up his article that he wrote, and he gives you all of these wonderful suggestions to do for your child, all of these points that you need to be aware of. When is it okay to keep your child home? When should you take your child in to see the doctor? Really reassuring. I think I still read it occasionally because especially when your child is sick, you always question yourself, am I doing the right thing? I don't want to put my child in harm's way. And it really brings a peace of mind when it's read and you act upon those simple things that he suggests, and
just things to look for. Here's what you keep an eye on. Here's the little signs and symptoms and behaviors and stuff you should be watching and noting, which I think makes a lot of sense, because I think probably what happens a lot of times is we think, I'm not a parent, but probably parents would be thinking, my child's fever is going up right now, so I got to stop it from going up, because what if it keeps going up and it never stops going up, Right. And so all is either there's a fever or there's no fever, either they're sick or they're not sick, and but if you're able to be given there's watch this, it's not a matter of just sometimes I think it gets portrayed, there are those who it gets portrayed like, oh, you just let them just do the natural thing and you don't worry about it, you don't watch them, you don't do anything. That's not
that's not the case at all.
Yeah, you don't just I'm just gonna let the kid ride it out and they'll be fine, and I'm not gonna do anything.
Put them from the TV and no.
And then they just let their fever skyrocket, and who knows what'll happen. It's like learning how to observe and know what's going on.
Right.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah. Exactly. What are the triggers? So another important aspect of the fever or anytime your child is ill is hydration. Hydration is key. That's key to helping your child get better faster and to feel, somewhat decent, not get lethargic, not become really, really, really sick and have to take your child in. Okay. And so raspberry leaf tea is a wonderful herb, especially even after vomiting and bouts of diarrhea, because it is mildly astringent. You can give even my 2-year-old, I gave her maybe a tablespoon every hour
Okay.
of a raspberry leaf tea.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah,
It's not like she has to take a whole cup down.
Right. And she had thrown up, and I knew that she was thirsty, and she was able to keep it down. And so I just kept giving her that every hour, and her diapers were still wet, and so I just looked for those signs, and she was better the next day. Cool. And it also helps with the diarrhea too, because it's slightly astringent. It helps with the stomach and the vomiting, and you could add a little peppermint to that too, which would be good for vomiting and diarrhea, any GI stuff. So other herbs that are really great for kids are chamomile, catnip, fennel, lemon balm. They're all really gentle, really good.
So many
good
herbs.
Yeah, so many. Good for tummy issues, good for fevers, good for irritability, growing pains. Those are major concerns, I think, with children.
Okay. So do you have all of these as dry herbs mostly, or
yeah, so a lot of times I'll dry the herbs that I grow, and then I will make a glycerite, especially for children. It has a sweet flavor to it, and then I'll just mix a little bit of water with the glycerin.
So like glycerite, meaning you put the dry herbs in glycerin, let them soak.
Yeah,
infuse.
so you're kind of steeping it, you're making an extraction.
Okay.
And it has a nice sweet flavor, and so the kids are more likely to take it.
Okay.
And it works really well.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of forms of something I'm learning about is that you have your dry herbs, you have your water. Tea, hot tea is actually one type of infusion, but you used to have cold teas. I mean, we have a cold tea, but it's like just sweet tea, whatever sweet tea. Actually, I don't know what sweet tea is normally made of, but it's like one thing to us, but with ice, or it's hot. But it's like, I'm realizing, they used to steep all kinds of things, and you put the herbs in the water for the afternoon or for a few hours, whatever, come back, and then you drink it. And with some things like rose hips, it's very sweet, almost like like a sweet berry lemonade kind of taste. And like, that was just a really cool thing that I discovered. We think of tea as being black tea, green tea, and then there's coffee. And then we have our cold drinks, orange juice, sweet tea. It's like we're soda. So narrow. Yeah, like there's all kinds of herbs, you can combine like an orange juice with a rose hips, or, things that pair well together, or even spruce needles have a very orangey smell.
They're wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a cool one.
I love that. There are herbs that do better extracted in just a room temperature water. Okay. Like herbs that are high in mucilage, like marshmallow or comfrey, things that are demulcent, which are very soothing to the tissues, GI, respiratory, urinary, and they extract better in the cooler water, and you get more medicine out of it. So it depends on the plant and what you want to do with it. And
because a hot tea would be too harsh for certain plants,
especially if they're fresh. Yeah, for sure. So our lemon balm tastes better with a cold infusion.
Okay.
Anything that's fresh, maybe we'd want to bruise up a little bit, or maybe blend up with the water and let it steep, a couple hours, even overnight, and then you can drink it throughout the rest of the day, the following day.
Okay.
You can make any kind of tea that are made with leaves and flowers that way. Roots and berries and seeds and barks and things like that need more heat to pull the medicinal constituents out of them. Okay. And so you would actually kind of simmer those plant materials in the water for 20 to 30 minutes or so to make a nice tea. So. And
then do you steep them longer after that usually, or?
Not necessarily. You don't have to. You can always cook it down, make a really, really strong decoction. Yeah. And that's what syrups are. Just a really strong decoction of a certain plant, and then you add equal parts honey, maybe a little bit of brandy if you wanted to extend the shelf life.
And just distill it down, not distill, but
kind of cook it down.
Boil it down, yeah.
Yeah, so what I like to do is make a really strong
Reduce it
decoction.
down.
Yeah,
That was the
reduce.
word I
There you
meant.
go. Is to cook it down.
word.
So if I started with 8 cups of water, I would cook it down to 4.
Okay.
And so I'd have a quart left over, and then you could strain it and drink it. I've decocted willow for maybe an hour or so, and I really cooked it down and made it really, really strong.
Okay.
And that's been really helpful for occasional headaches.
Okay.
So yeah, it just
Cool.
depends on what you want.
So that just makes me think of right before I did the herbal walk with you, herb walk. I had just early this summer gotten into like sourdough starters and making your own stuff at home, like root beer. So I started making root beer at home, and I brought it over to a friend, and he kind of, when I was talking about the root beer making process, he kind of made the connection. He's like, oh, well, that's why root beer used to be sold at pharmacies, because someone obviously was making a cough syrup and then stumbled upon root beer, because it's the exact same process. So when you make root beer, you get all these different roots, and like cinnamon's barks and roots. So you can get cinnamon bark, licorice root, sassafras root, wild cherry bark, and all these things. Boil them, and that's where you get the flavor. And then you add a bunch of sugar. And if you're doing a soda, you just add way more sugar than you would a cough syrup. And then you ferment it in a bottle for a few days, and that gives them natural carbonation. And then you've got your super tasty, and you can use honey, you can use sugar, you can use molasses, which kind of has more of the root beery kind of flavor. And so I was kind of like, oh, and he was like, yeah, because in old times, it's like an old-timey thing to have a pharmacy selling root beer and ice cream. And like, I was like, yeah, there's somewhere in my mind that remembers that that's the case. And then I went to your class where you were kind of teaching us how to use the herbs and how to do infusions and decoctions and all this stuff. And one of them, is that what a decoction is the roots? Okay.
Right.
So you did that for one of the cough syrups, and I realized, I was like, wait a second, that's the same process as my root beer making.
Nice. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
forgot. So when you drink root beer, you're actually drinking something beneficial, because you have all those roots and barks and things that are in there. So the medicinal is in there. It's just way more sugar than if you were making a cough syrup. You make it way more sweet because it's a treat. But so our desserts used to actually be more beneficial for us to eat than today's, factory carbonated, full of high fructose corn syrup and artificial flavorings. We've taken out all of the beneficial parts of dessert and just made it nothing but sugar straight to the blood.
Yeah. Insulin spiking for poison, really.
Yeah, and
In a lot of ways.
and the flavors in the homemade is so you can you can make you can do so many different recipes and adjust your flavorings differently to what different people like, and you can do a cherry bark drink that's carbonated, that's a cherry soda. Anyways, this is why I think it's cool. I could talk too much about that.
I need to learn about that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, you start really, I could probably make a spruce needle soda, just take these same concepts and then make really tasty treats out of it.
Yep.
But it's time consuming. It's a lot of knowledge and work. So how do you find the time? I'll ask that question that everyone asks when they interview.
I do a lot of work in the summer.
Okay.
Late spring, summer. Yeah, a lot of majority of my work is in the summer.
Okay.
And
harvest season.
yeah, yep. Yeah, so different plants you harvest at different times. So when I'm harvesting, I'm going up in the mountains to harvest arnica late May.
Okay.
And maybe early June. And violets, in June. But rose hips are in the fall with the roots. And so I'm thinking about, where is the energy in the plant right now? Is it producing leaves? Is it producing flowers? Is it producing fruit? Is it going back into the roots? And so that's that's when you want to harvest.
I want to say something real quick. Sorry, I have to keep jumping in. But it's just so cool to learn all this stuff because you learn that plants, they draw up sugars into the fruit at different times. They, the chemicals in the plant go down into the roots and then come up into the leaves. And trees pull sap up at certain times, and the sap is flowing at down at different times of the year and up at different times of the year, and that changes the medicinal properties of everything.
Yeah. Right. And so barks and roots are really good during the spring or the fall before all the energy goes really further up into the plant. With wild cherry bark, it contains cyanide until the berry is fully ripened, and that cyanide is actually in the pit of the cherry.
Okay.
And so I like to make a wild cherry syrup with the cherries. Of course I don't crush the seeds because the cyanide's in them, but I'll cook that down with the inner bark when the berries the cherries are ripe. Okay. And it just has this really nice almond cherry flavor. It's so good. Oh, cool. So I make that decoction and then I add some honey. You could also add some brandy as well because that's going to help open up the respiratory system, the bronchioles. But then, and if you didn't want to, you wouldn't have to. You could just add the honey and it would stay good in your fridge for a long time. 3, 4, sometimes 6 months.
Yeah, because alcohol is one of the best preservatives.
Yes, it is, absolutely.
I think I learned that from your class, is that herbs and alcohol lasts apparently forever.
Yes.
Which I can't comprehend this. Yeah. Like I have like a major scarcity. I'm always like, oh, this thing is going bad. Now I've got to go replace it. And that's the stress of all this stuff for me is things, running their cycle. But to have something that lasts forever, I'm like, that's my dream.
And at least decades, and so that makes it really good for emergencies, especially cayenne. Cayenne pepper tincture is wonderful for shock, for heart attack, for stroke, for bleeding. It's a wonderful emergency herb. And the tinctures, when they are administered alcohol base, are just a faster acting. They're faster acting, and they
more potent, maybe?
Yeah, they can be more potent for sure.
Okay. Do you ever boil down alcohol, reduce down? Or
you can. Yeah, so this summer I recently made a Lactucarium, which is a chemical constituent that is found in wild lettuce, or prickly leaf lettuce is another name for that. But so you have to cook it down. So I gathered about 100 grams of the leaf and the stems. And if you were to cut off a stem, you would see the white sappy stuff inside, for lack of a better word. And so I dried it. I kind of broke it down, cut it up a little bit, I think is what I did. And then I weighed it and I added it to a big pot with some water. So it was like a 1 to 5 ratio. No, maybe it was 1 to 10. So I did like 500 milligrams of water, 500 milligrams of alcohol. And I cooked it all down, made this really strong decoction. It smelled really like earthy and weedy in my house. Everybody was like, what are you doing? It smells terrible in here. And so I strained that. And then I cooked it down again, added a little more water, a little more alcohol, cooked it. And then all of a sudden the kids walked up, are you making brownies? What are you making? It smells so good in here. And that's when the medicine, that second decoction, started becoming more activated. So sometimes we need more heat to pull out the medicine, and the alcohol just helps preserve it. And so that's a wonderful plant. It actually has some opioid-like chemical properties to it, but it doesn't have any addictive properties. So it's wonderful for pain, wonderful for intense anxiety, wonderful for insomnia. So it's a good nervine.
Nervine, that's one of those words
nervine.
I like.
Yeah. Good
it
for the nervous system.
For your nerves and your anxiety and stuff.
Yeah, so that one's fun. There's
cool.
Oh man, there's so many different
so
applications.
So much you can learn and so many aspects to it, which, that's another thing is to a certain extent, a raw food diet is really ideal in a lot of ways, eating raw fruits and vegetables. But when you start learning, you're like, some things actually the medicinal properties are released when you cook them, and then you double cook them. Did you know already that the double cooking was the key, or did you just figure that out?
No, I learned it from another herbalist.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you knew that was going to happen. You didn't quite know the smell.
I didn't know that the smell was going to change.
Going to be okay.
So I didn't know that at all.
Okay.
And sometimes people will cook things down until they have kind of like a black tarry paste, and then add more water and alcohol, and some plants need less alcohol, so they need a less percentage. Okay. Because there are chemical constituents in that plant that are more water soluble, but they need the alcohol to help preserve it. And so that's just another something else you have to learn. There's a book I love from Easley and Horn, and he's one of my teachers, and Stephen Horn. And in the naturopath program, he's the herbalist. And he helped write the Modern Herbal Dispensatory. And in that book, it will tell you exactly percentage of alcohol that plant needs if you were to make a tincture.
Okay.
And that's really important because some people think, oh, well, the higher alcohol content I use, the better the plant will be. Well, that's not necessarily true at all.
Right.
Because some of those plant constituents, to be able to extract into that solvent, needs
properly.
Yeah, maybe it needs something else. Maybe it needs more water.
Yeah.
And there's some plants that actually do need like almost 100% alcohol to be extracted, and those are like really resinous plants, like gumweed and frankincense and myrrh and things like that need really high.
Frankincense and myrrh.
Yeah,
those are Christmassy kinds of. All we know about them is that the three wise men had them.
Yes.
We don't know anything. We don't know anything else about it.
Yeah, they believe that it was helpful for a woman to help heal after she gave birth, and I mean, there's all kinds of medicinal qualities.
So maybe that's why they brought it, because it was a birth, and so they're bringing gifts that makes a lot of sense. That's so interesting. I'd love to talk more about that, but I feel like that's a deeper subject too. Yeah. But are there any books? What books and resources would you recommend?
So if you're just starting, I love Rosemary Gladstar's book, Medicinal Herbs, A Beginner's Guide.
Okay.
That one's wonderful to start with. She has some good herbs in there that are easy to grow. She has very simple instructions on how to make basic herbal medicine. And then just beautiful pictures, descriptions, recipes. That's a really nice one to start with. The other one that I mentioned was the Modern Herbal Dispensatory.
Okay.
If you want to go in just a little deeper. Anything from Matthew Wood is going to be fantastic. I love him.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what classes, if they, I mean, your class, tell us about your classes. What are you
my
offering
classes,
this winter?
So depending on where life takes us, it just depends. I don't know what's coming and what I'll be able to do. But if I could, in January, I like to teach a seed starting class. So we teach kind of a seed propagation, I should say, class.
Okay.
So starting seeds indoors under lights.
Okay.
And February, I teach a pruning class. And so I'm a master gardener, so I teach some gardening classes.
Okay. So this winter, you don't have any from now to like
December. I usually will do like a holiday gift making class. And I wasn't sure where we were going to be after the elections. So I didn't plan anything.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I will still. I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't wanted to commit to anything because I just don't know how people are going to feel about certain situations.
Yeah.
And then December I usually take off. Then January is a seed propagation class. February's pruning. March, I think I usually do like a fermentation class during that time. Oh, goodness.
And then April and June, you start your...
Yeah, so I want to do, just kind of dive into more specific classes. So we do like women's health. We did a retreat. That was really nice. focused on women's herbs and women's health. And then we do like a basic herbal course and first aid, and then like a family care class. And then I like to do one with children, and actually have children come and learn about children's herbs and teach them how to make medicine.
Cool.
So yeah, just things like that people are interested in.
And you do the herbal walks in the spring and summer when it's nice weather, and there's, because when we went up, there was so many things blooming and green, and then I went back in August and September, and things had like died, and the trail was super dusty from you know, just being trodden on all summer, and it gets dry here more and more in the winter, and then everything also dies. So there was definitely not as much. Yeah.
But a good time to harvest roots if you know what you're looking for sure.
Oh, okay.
And so
I also didn't want to steal your spot. I'm like,
that's funny.
I don't know.
No, I think it's important to talk about sustainability and harvesting sustainably. When we are harvesting our plants, we're harvesting maybe 1 out of 10 of those plants, especially if we're taking the whole plant. If we're taking plants that are perennial and that will come back the next year or reseed, maybe I'll leave some to reseed so it can continue to propagate. But yeah, so it just depends on the plant. Nettles, you know, take all you want. Yarrow, take all you want. I mean, don't rip it out of the ground, but cut it back.
Yeah.
And flowers are easy to take, because usually if you were to pick flowers, the plant itself wants to multiply and replenish the earth. So it's going to produce more flowers so it can produce seed. And so the more flowers you pick, the more it will produce. So just kind of know.
That's an interesting thing too, is that it's not always bad for humans to go in and be pulling things or cutting, you know, tramping through, and you're tramping through and actually stepping on old growth too. And, you know, as we were getting elderberries, I was kind of pulling out old branches and stuff that had died, because elderberries tend to have these old branches that are just hanging there. Yeah. And I'm sure when
you'll stimulate new growth, really, is what you'll do.
Okay.
That's what pruning does. Pruning stimulates new growth.
Cool.
We think we prune to get rid of, you know, excess growth. Well, you're really just stimulating that plant to grow more.
Yeah.
Is what you're doing. So,
and even picking the fruit and the berries and the flowers can actually, like you're saying, can make it actually grow back stronger. And so you just have to be aware. But there's certain, I know I learned from my friend that I'm also doing the foraging with, like with mullein. He said that he once did a small area that had a bunch of mullein. They got all of the yellow flowers and stalks. They just pulled them all off, and next year there weren't any there.
Oh, and well, that's because it's a biannual. So if it reseeds itself, it will only produce a rosette the first year, and then the second year it will produce a flower stalk, seed, and die.
So that's
know the difference between annual, biannual, perennial, all that, because that's going to tell you what that plant's going to look like the next year.
Okay.
So if you were to go back the next year after that, then you'll probably see more mullein. And then let some go to seed.
He was worried he had just gotten rid of that batch.
Oh, did he cut the stalks back?
He just cut the top yellow part. They just cut them all off.
Oh, okay. So maybe he didn't allow it to go to seed.
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah. So
and he's like, I won't do that again, because he's like, I realized, you know, that's my source right there. I don't want to, you know, decimate it.
Right. You know, but there could have been first years that were there, and then they produced more flowers the second year, the following year. So, if you are picking flowers, make sure you leave some to just go to seed.
Okay. Yeah, be sustainable.
Yes.
You know, about it. Okay, so the summer's when you do your herb walks and your herb classes more, and your tincture and all those cool, you make salves, you make, well, I don't know if we made one, but we talked about how to or something. And then tell us about your website, what you have on your website, and how to access it.
So my website is organicemily.com, and on there I have a basic herbal course you can take for free. Okay. It's just a very simple PowerPoint presentation under the media page.
I should take that.
Yeah, you can do that. And so I have my events page. It lists all the classes I teach. Okay. I'm thinking about doing like a regular hiking schedule. Okay. So we go out and, you know, it would be with minimal amount of people, where we would just go hike and on a regular basis because the landscape changes all the time. And we would go and hike all over Utah.
Cool.
And at least within the Wasatch Front area.
Yeah.
And then I have lots of recipes on there, lots of information on particular medicinal herbs, how to successfully grow a garden, vegetable or, medicinal. It's all one and the same, basically. Yeah, lots of good food, lots of healthy and unhealthy.
Cool.
Because
Unhealthy? No.
there's some unhealthy, but it's all made from scratch.
Okay.
So we can let those slide.
Okay. We'll let it go.
Yeah, so
No,
lots of good info.
having treats is part of life.
It is. You have to enjoy life,
Yeah.
right? Food brings people together. Food is really important for cultivating relationships, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. And then real quick, tell us about your Facebook page and how to go
So you can go to, let's see, I think it's Organic Emily, the Organic Suburban Farmgirl.
Okay.
On there. And I've done lots of kind of little videos on, single herbs and talked about those and bread making and soap making and tincture making.
Tutorials
and,
or little explanations. And
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So lots of good info.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Really appreciate it. Obviously, I could talk about this for ages.
Me too.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for being on, and check out her website and check out her Facebook page.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.